Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today we're going to conclude our book study of Manly P. Hall's Magic, a treatise on practical occultism. This is the third and final part, and there will be a lot of interesting gems as usual. So without too much further ado, Magic, a treatise on natural occultism. Peace and greetings to everybody in the building. OA, peace. Alicia M, peace. Society Ejects, peace and greetings, my friend. Al Dickey, peace, peace. Diagram showing how healthy, vital body protects man from black magic and disease. Cradle of humankind, peace. Sunshine Chick, peace, peace. Always good to see you. Elisha Eternal, peace. Alright, so let's get into the study. And if you're enjoying this text, go ahead and hit the like button. Let me know how the audio is, if the music is too loud or if it's okay. All right. (54). This is part 3, the mechanics of magic. 54. Man is composed of 3 principal parts: spirit, mind, and body. Body, in turn, is divided into vehicles and essences. The essences are divided into 2 distinct divisions: a distillation of body consciousness, commonly called the soul, and the archetypes or molds. These molds are often referred to as patterns, trestle boards, and architectural plans, after which the bodies are shaped and formed. Alright, so that's pretty straightforward right there. Man is composed of 3 parts: spirit, mind, and body. Nothing that we haven't heard before, but he's going to get into how this all ties into the mechanics of magic. WT, peace, brother, peace. So, the vehicles or bodies of man are 4 in number, each having its respective mold into which it is cast while in a fluidic or mutable condition. These bodies are named the physical body, composed of solids, liquids, and gases; the vital body, composed of 2 atomic substances and 2 elemental essences; the astral or emotional body, composed of 7 strata of volatile fire atoms called asteroids; and the mental body, composed of 2 major divisions designated as Rupa and Arupa by the Hindus, and more commonly known as the worlds of formed and unformed thought, or abstract and concrete mind. So whenever you see the word Rupa in Sanskrit, that means form. Arupa means without form. Alright, so we just went over the physical body, the etheric body, or as he calls it, the vital body, the astral body, and the mental body. And each one of those bodies have their own subdivisions, designations. These four bodies constitute both the chain of vehicles, which we know as the inferior nature of man, and the invisible causal bodies, which act and react in or through physical substance. In India, these bodies are called a string of beads through which the life thread or consciousness runs, connecting them all together. This thought is beautifully expressed by Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita. Peace, Chicken McNugget. Chicken McNugget says, I was literally just thinking about this, and I opened YouTube, and there you are, live streaming. See, you got the astral notification. Peace, Richard Tracy. Richard Tracy says, what's up, everyone? I can't stay, but wanted to come and say I love you all and show support. Peace, MC Maestro. Welcome, welcome. $56. Let's turn this. From the macrocosmic man radiate the four areas of activity, which result in the forming of the body chain. That's on page 7, he says. I doubt that it's on this page 7, but we'll see. Oh, it is, yep. So this, it looks like he's going to get into describing this picture that we saw 2-3 weeks ago. So notice there's the four sections, and he just talked about these four bodies, right? We've got man, the earthborn, Hiram, the waterborn, Lucifer, the fireborn, and Satan, the airborn. Airborne Ranger, where have you been? Around the world and back again. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Alright, so from the macrocosmic man radiate the four areas of activity which result in the forming of the body chain. From the mouth of the Adamic prototype was ejected Brahma, the mind-born, as a personification of the ancient element of air. Without the element of fire and light, its manifestation, air, was colorless and was referred to by the ancients as the true blackness. This was also called the crown of chaos by the great Robert Flood. It is the true darkness which precedes light, and may be truly called the womb of the cosmos. It should be remembered that this figure merely represents Brahma in the aspect of Shiva, or the creator of the form world. He becomes the four-headed cherubim described by Josephus, and also the Hindu Brahma in his four-headed aspect after his fifth head, Akasha, had been destroyed by Shiva. In simpler words, the figure represents the lower planes of our planetary and solar systems, those rates of vibratory force which react tangibly or intangibly upon the substances cognized by intelligence, sense, or sensation. So right there, he just described what we find happening in the mental plane and the mental body. He also connected the four-headed Brahma with the group of angels called the sheaths, which are the group of angels that are under the presidency of Metatron. These are the typical four-headed creatures that we see, right? You'll find them also on the tarot card, the world card. But I think we've all seen the picture of the symbolic representation with the bull, the lion, the man face, and the eagle head. There's not actually angels floating around with those four heads. That would be ridiculous. But that is a symbol and a reference to a type of existence, a type of consciousness, namely the mental plane. You could even say the world of Absoluth. So I'm just pointing out the correspondences here that we're given. The way that we grasp this whole thing to a greater degree is by understanding the correspondences that link it across the board. So, that first aspect was the mental plane. He related it to Brahma in the aspect of Shiva. MC Maestro says Ezekiel's vision as well, I believe. Absolutely, yes, yes. Louis, peace, peace. Midnight Mina, I see you. Peace. Veronica, welcome, welcome, peace. MC Maestro says, I watched a video yesterday of a rabbi breaking down how Paul the Apostle was doing a form of Tatwashuddhi. It wasn't called that, but the similarities were present. Louis asks, is the mind is etheric? Well, when we think of the mind, what we know of as the mind is actually layers upon layers upon layers. The densest level of mind is actually the body and the base instincts. A more subtle aspect of mind than that is the imagination and our cognition. A more subtle aspect of mind is expressed through emotion. A more subtle aspect is expressed through basic logic. Right? Do I go left or right, on or off? And that basic logic is the foundation of more complex thought. And the most subtle aspect of mind that we have direct access to, we call it intuition. Intuition is a lot like a fine instrument that picks up data that is not detected by the lower, more dense aspect of mind. So mind actually ranges up and down the whole gamut. Ego is an aspect of mind. Memory is an aspect of mind. Framestar Films. Peace. Alright, let's continue. So, 57. We know that our scheme of worlds began as thought forms, or as science pleases to call them, dark nebula. So right there he just connected thought forms to dark nebula. This darkness is the substance from which were differentiated the mind bodies of the present human race. The word substance in this case refers to the intangible mass of mentoids which composed the mind body of the archetypal atom. At the present time, the lords of mind, or the formless air devas, lords of mind, air devas, function in bodies composed of this attenuated substance, which Herbert Spencer defines as the basis of thought power. It was from the darkness of his premium Heil that the visible universe was differentiated. When the dark nebula, in the process of their strivings, to use the terminology of Jacob Bohm, were brought into visibility through the glowing light created by the friction of the dark atoms. So what he's describing here is a rather skillful description of existence on the mental plane, existence in the world of Absoluth. So we talk about substance, right? The substance of existence, which is the medium of existence on the physical plane, is physical matter. So if it exists on the physical plane, it is composed of physical matter. There has to be physical matter for something to exist on the physical plane. In the etheric plane, the substance is prana. In the etheric plane, the substance is prana. In the astral plane, the substance is what we call emotion. Raw emotion. Not not the cut, mixed, chopped, and screwed emotion that we bounce back and forth from in our everyday lives, but a very refined aspect of those same emotions, a very refined aspect. And when I say refined, I mean the substance of the astral plane is emotion that isn't connected to anything. It's pure love without having to have someone or something to love. It's pure hatred without having any target to attach it to. This is why Dharana is the single most important technique in magical practice, because it is through Dharana that we're able to use a target and bypass ourselves and the target to go straight to the pure emotion behind it. All right, when it comes to gratitude, for example, we think that you have to have something or someone to be grateful for. If you remove yourself and you remove the target, there's just gratitude. That's the substance of the astral plane. Pure emotion, raw emotion without having anything to anchor it down. And then, of course, the substance of the mental plane he just described here. He says that this is a scheme of worlds that began as thought forms. The substance of the mental plane is thought forms. Naturally natured, peace. Good to see you. Been a minute. MC Maestro says the hate without a target thing was a practice I used to do a lot. It was a better emotion than hating a subject. Absolutely. Absolutely. Valis, peace. Valis asks, how would you say Yod He Vau He Jehovah Yahweh relates to this book? Well, considering that the essence of what Jehovah is a symbolic description of a formula. Notice there's 4 letters in that name, in that title. And we just talked about the 4-headed angel, the sheaths, with the head of a lion, head of a bull, head of an eagle, head of a man. Those aren't actually floating in space somewhere. That's a representative of the substance of the mental plane, right? The 4-headed Brahma, representative of the substance of the mental plane, the substance of the world of Absoluth. Yod He Vau He, Jehovah, Yahweh. This is a title that is essentially describing the same formula of that 4-step process of creation, the 4 worlds, the 4 elements, but it's placed into a name, it's placed into a title. What is Jehovah? It's not a person or a thing. Jehovah is a process. Yahweh is a process. So how does this book relate? How does Yahweh relate to this book? This book is describing Yahweh. It's describing the process. The 4 bodies that we just read, the 4 planes that were just mentioned, the 4 elements, all the 4 stuff. That's Jehovah. That's what Jehovah is. Chicken McNugget says, yes, that was mentioned in Neville Goddard's book too, Jehovah's Name and the Process of Creation. Right. And the more you read this stuff, the more you start to see recurring patterns. See, Neville Goddard was within the same group of, not the same group as Manly P. Hall, but around that same time frame. He was in the same group as William Walker Atkinson and the writers of the Kabbalion. And you'll even notice that they spoke in code. If you study these books, you'll see a lot of the same words used. You'll see a lot of the same phrases. Many of Neville Goddard's books have chapters titled after phrases in the Kabbalion, but you would know that unless you studied the Kabbalion. So yeah, it is the same thing. But there were a few people who were smart enough to dispense this occult wisdom in simple terms for the average person. That's what got him so famous. That's what got the author of Think and Grow Rich so famous. They were able to break this complex information down into simple, regular person terms. Because in truth, this science, this magic, isn't reserved for some elite. This is a process that we're all literally doing all the time. It's just most people don't understand it. Most people don't pay attention to it. We are always invoking Yahweh at all times. You get an impulse to get something to eat, and you'll turn that impulse to wanting to go get a chalupa from Taco Bell. You'll work up the image of it in your mind, the taste of it, whatever you need to grab onto it to practice dharana enough to invoke yourself to get up and charge another human being to create this for you. Whoa. And then within a few moments, you're able to go and eat this manifested chalupa that you desired. That's the process of Jehovah. It is absolutely not an angry sky being waiting to punish anybody. That's the misinformation fed to the uninitiated. Elisha Eternal says, speaking of books, I just purchased yours today. Awesome. Awesome. You're going to like it. Let me know what you get out of it. Valis says, Jehovah punishes evil beings. Well, Jehovah doesn't punish anybody because, again, Jehovah's not a person that actually does anything. Jehovah is a process. Now, that process can punish someone who's ignorant of it, right? So you invoke for yourself bad luck. You invoke for yourself tragedy from ignorance. So in that respect, yes, evil is ignorance. And the process of manifestation, the process of Jehovah, punishes ignorance. Not a boogeyman. It's a process. The same way if you are ignorant of how to use, say, a garbage disposal in the sink, you know, when the sink has those blades in there, if you cut on the switch and it chops everything up, if you're ignorant about how to use that process, you will get punished. If you're ignorant about how to properly drive a car in traffic, you will get punished. If you're ignorant about the process of how to take care of your body with medicine or anything that you put in your body, you will be punished. So in that respect, yes. But surely, as you've been watching my channel for quite some time, we know that there is no such thing as evil. It's a subjective concept that depends on the individual's perspective. But the true evil is indeed ignorance. Let's continue. Number 58. Thought awoke feeling. And the fire worlds were born, and our system, celestial and terrestrial, existed as a flaming nebula. The occult philosophers agree partly with the theory now known as the nebular hypothesis concerning the origin of the solar system. They teach, however, that the planets are never actually thrown from the parent sun or nucleus, but really remain as individualizing centers within the auric body of the parent globe. The fire worlds, according to the Brahmins, were born from the arms and shoulders of the archetypal man. They were called the red suns, or the fireborn, and the twisting and seething of flame was considered symbolic of their strivings. They represent the astral or emotional body of man. For all of the fire in human nature is an expression of the eternal principle of fire in the cosmic man. So take notice here. Most people assume that when we're talking about the astral body, we're talking about water. But according to, the long-standing ancient science, the astral plane has been associated with fire. Now, this is because most Westerners don't take into account the etheric plane. There's going to be some practices and teachings that don't talk about the etheric plane at all. So since they skip that plane, they misattribute water to the astral. But in truth, the astral plane is correspondent to the fire element. See, it all has to fit together in a system. Otherwise, the structure is not going to be sound enough to uphold scrutiny. It's not going to be sound enough to uphold practice. If your system isn't put together very well, it will be shaken. And if the foundation isn't strong, it's going to crumble. That's why it's very important to get the foundations right and get your emotions out of this. Pablo X69, peace. So we just talked about how thought awoke feeling, right? That's the mental plane awaking the astral plane. That is Atziluth awaking Bria. Now let's look at the next step. He says feeling gave birth to impulse. So we get thought that awakens feeling, and then we got feeling that gives birth to impulse. Okay? Now he just talked about how thought relates to the air element. If you're a true student, I hope you're writing this down or studying this in some capacity, because this is the type of information you're going to see across the board. These are the keys to decipher this information. Once you learn the patterns, you don't have to guess anymore. That's why I keep repeating this stuff. The mental aspect relates to air. Thought awoke feeling, so air awoke fire. Feeling gives birth to impulse, from fire to water. So let's talk about that. Feeling gave birth to impulse. Vitality was established, and the brown man was born from the viscera of the divine prototype. He was the waterborn. He was ordained to labor in the fields and stores, for he was the principle of strength and energy. Geologists know, and so do astronomers, that when the planets were in the process of cooling, great clouds of mist surrounded the molten globe. This humid ether was regarded by the ancients as the veils of the world virgin. The veil of Isis, the veil of the Virgin. Under its influences were individualized the moon-faced gods, or the shades and the shadows. More references to the moon, which is the symbol of the water element. Hakim Lamidi, peace. Take into account all these correspondences. Under its influences were individualized the moon-faced gods, or the shades and shadows. It corresponds with the vital body of man, the vital body, the etheric body. So the water element lines up with the etheric body. Finally, the crystallization of humility resulted in the formation of the solid earth. Humility. I think that's supposed to be humidity. But it corresponds to the vital body of man. Finally, the crystallization of humility resulted in the formation of the solid earth, referred to as the black man. Often called, in India, the Sudra. I haven't heard that yet. Maybe somebody might want to look that up. The Sudra. S-U-D-R-A. Rainwater, peace. Brother Lone Wolf, peace. Okay, so the Sudra, or the creature born into slavery. The black man born into slavery, doomed to live in chains until the night of the gods dissolved its shackles. This is the physical body of all things, which bears witness through its functions and powers to its quaternary constitution. So just peep how, if this was the symbology, even in ancient times, even in ancient India, right, where the whole concept of race and the caste system originated, if this has always been the symbolism, think of the subconscious implications of titling entire demographics of people as belonging to one of these classes. We talk about manifestation, right? To take on these titles. I mean, if you weren't initiated, you would think that what he's saying right here is racist, especially the past two lines where he talked about the brown man who's committed to toiling and working hard. The black man born into slavery, and his chains remain until they're dissolved on the final days. You think that was being racist if you didn't understand that this was all symbolic. Now, the fact that we have whole groups of people who take on the title of these colors, well, in a way it's going to play out, because these archetypes existed before we had these concepts of race. As above, so below. MC Maestro says, so Trav, are you saying that the caste systems refer to the densities of prana and not white colonizers set to ruin the world? I know it sounds crazy, but yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Peace. We grow natural family. Good to see you. Glorify says, I get so horny whenever I see occult information. Maybe it's just when you see me. Let's continue. 60. It is interesting to see how closely the mythology of the Brahmins coincides with the latest discoveries of science. In the ancient Buddhist hymns, we find many references to the unfolding atoms. Thousands of years before the Christian era, the Tibetans knew that an atom was a solar system. Thousands of years before the Christian era. The Tibetans knew that an atom was a solar system, but because ideas were expressed symbolically, the Oriental minds have never received proper credit for their philosophical penetration. Never received credit. 61. As the universe began as a dark nebula of mind stuff, so man, the little universe, built in the image of his Father and bearing witness to the functions of his creative pattern, Yahweh, Jehovah, also began his physical manifestation as a mineral thought form. Later, he appeared as a fiery plant, and gradually, after many ages of transition, this plant became a sacred animal composed of a body of humid ether. Later, like his celestial archetype, he incarnated into physical substance as a human creature. That was the description of our evolution in like 4 sentences. Evolution is real. Maybe not necessarily from a monkey to a man. And here's the thing, evolution is an evolution of consciousness. Consciousness develops for itself a body to gather experience. Once a certain level of experience has expanded wide enough, it requires a new body to gather new experiences in. So it's consciousness that causes matter to evolve. It's not simply that monkeys turn into men. It's not simply that we grow thumbs. It's not simply that some fish crawled off the water and became a different being. The consciousness that animates and operates the group soul of whatever species collects data. It collects data. And once data has been accumulated to a sufficient degree, the process doesn't stop. It just requires a new vehicle to collect different kinds of data. We're seeing the same exact thing play out right now with our so-called artificial intelligence. In truth, right now, it's technically intelligence augmentation. We're not at artificial intelligence yet, but we will be soon. Intelligence augmentation. The difference is that these technologies and tools require human input, and it augments human behavior. Right? It's augmentation right now. It's IA. Very soon it will be AI. But essentially what's happening here is the neural networks that store and operate all the data that it's accumulating from the internet, from the input of us humans on a daily basis, that's causing the neural networks to require more capacity, right? I was listening to a lecture from one of the very significant contributors to ChatGPT, and he was talking about how not long ago, less than 10 years I believe, maybe even 5, the neural network capacity was about the size of a housefly, right? Today it's about the size of a squirrel. It won't be long before that neural network brain size is the size of a human being. And after that point, it will be able to contain more capacity, right? We're going to see this thing expand past us within our lifetime, within the next, dare I say, 5 years or less. But what I'm saying here is that when this data collection, aggregation becomes so big, so vast, it needs something new to contain it all in. The same thing has happened with us and is still happening with us. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that that was relevant. I know it was relevant, but I hope you found it as relevant. So let's continue. Elisha Eternal says Pluto and Aquarius type things. Right. 62. As a thought form, he had but one body. As an astral plant, he had two bodies, one composed of mind ether and the other of fire ether. As an etheric sacred animal, he added to these two a body of water ether. And as a human being, he adds a fourth composed of chemical dense physical ether. If you have to sit down and study those two lines for an hour, do that, because this is a principle you're going to see echoed throughout the ancient occult texts and the modern occult texts worth their salt. He's describing the structure of the four bodies, the four vehicles: the physical body, the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body. Notice how it started at the top and worked its way down. It doesn't start with a physical body who gains an etheric body, who taps into the astral body. No, it starts as a mental body, which grows and requires more capacity, so it develops an astral body. It expands and requires more capacity, so it develops an etheric body, and it grows to such a capacity that it needs a physical body. See how that kind of flips things around? Seeing that this experience is actually the end result of a very long, more important process. You're not here for whatever earthly thing you think you're here for. This is a small part of it. The whole reason you're even into this information is because you know that at some level. You know that. So let's keep going. 63. The goetic number of Andros. Man remains in the physical world, according to the ancient wisdom, for approximately 800 Earth lives, during which time he passes through an infinite diversity of human forms and environments. Infinite diversity. And learns to master the various organic qualities from which dense physical vehicles are manufactured. His great work during that time is to master the element of earth, and gradually to incorporate into his water, fire, and air bodies the qualities and essences which he extracts from his experiences in substance. See? So the purpose here isn't at all to make this world a better place. If you guys used to watch Brother Panic, or still do, you may have heard him say things like, it's not about creating a better economic plan, or we got to get reparations, or we got to heal the world and stop war. It's not about none of that stuff at all. There's a very advanced book that's very difficult to understand, or not difficult to understand. It's got a lot of information in it. Actually, it's a series of books called Matrix. Maybe even a good place to start is Matrix number 5 if you can find it. It's a very big book. But in that book, they talk about the game. This is a game. There's nothing to do here. There's two sides, right? There's a side of people who are pushing for this agenda, and then there's the opposing force pushing for this agenda. This is a context. Doesn't matter what they're fighting for. Doesn't matter what they're fighting for. All that matters is that there's a context of one force and an opposing force. That's the game. There's always going to be somebody who wants this and a group who opposes that and wants something different. Always. Now, most people who are still in the process of living those 800 lives, playing the game, have chosen one side or another and are dedicating all of their prana, all of their valuable prana, to fighting some invisible war. There's a third aspect that is only reached towards your final incarnations. And it's only reached towards your final incarnations because you have to have gone through this game enough times to realize neither side matters. The third aspect is the observer. You observe, you learn, you take into account these experiences. You learn from both sides. You watch it happen. Now, whenever you see threes, what does that mean? Somebody tell me. Not you, Maestro, because I know you know. Whenever you see threes, what is that symbolic of? What does that correspond with? Somebody tell me. You gotta have some correspondence idea. There's always going to be one active, and there's always going to be one passive. There's going to be one fiery and one earthy, one electric and one magnetic. Thank you, Sunshine Chick Gunas. So with that being the case, the third aspect is going to be the sattvic aspect, the harmonized. And it's only through the sattvic aspect do you transcend matter. Right? So all that being said, we're here to go through that process of left and right, back and forth so many times that we're forced to understand that there's a third option. You don't understand that there's a third option until you get beat across the head enough times that you say that I'm not going to take it anymore. It's only when you've hit rock bottom in your incarnations that you decide it's time to transcend. Not before. You must get your ass whooped. You must. And if you haven't had enough, you're gonna go look for another fight. This time you might be a Democrat Republican. This time you might be fighting for the LGBTQ. This time you might be fighting for who the fuck cares. Doesn't matter what side you're on. What matters is that you recognize that this is a game and neither side matters. Because if either side wins, there will be imbalance, right? If either side wins, there will be imbalance. Somebody's going to be unhappy. The only way to win this game is to stop playing it. Don't take my word for it. Get your own experience. I'm not playing the game. I'm done with it. You can play it. Go ahead. But understand, it's more to it than what you might think. Let's continue. 64. Man still has his three higher bodies, which are invisible but nevertheless all powerful. Without the vital body, he would be a mineral. For the stones and metals have not individualized any of the vehicles above the physical dense structure. At the present time, the fire, air, and water bodies of man are manifesting only through the physical earthly organisms, where the air body gives the power of thought, the fire body the power of motion and emotion, and the water body the power of reproduction and growth. Therefore, while unseen, there are many manifestations and functions which bear witness to the power of man's invisible constitution. Powerful. That's a good point right there, MC Maestro. MC Maestro says, even when not on a macro scale, the battle of duality is also on the personal micro scale, right? You don't even have to be involved in no marches or football games or politics. You have an opportunity to play that game in here, right? It's not being a part of Western culture. It's part of being a human. There will be some fight that is begging for your attention, some battle begging for you to join. That's part of this experience. And until you go through enough karma to understand that it's a game, you'll continue. And that's okay, because Prakriti needs chess pieces for the game to work. If everybody stopped playing the game would cease to exist. And who wants that? Pay attention to verse number 64 here, because previously not only did he just come down from the high levels down to the low, in a way he's also going from low back up to high. Basically what he's describing and putting together are the correspondences between the elements, between the bodies, and how they relate to our experience as vehicles for consciousness. 64 is really important. Without the etheric body, right? Without your etheric body, we would be incarnated as a mineral, as some kind of rock or a crystal, right? Without an etheric body, we would be some kind of rock or crystal. In fact, that's what rocks and crystals are. A vehicle for consciousness without an etheric body. See this moldavite? See this Tibetan quartz? Let's continue. For the stones and metals have not individualized any of the vehicles above the physical dense structure, right? They are pure physical body. That's it. At the present time, the fire, air, and water bodies of man are manifesting only through the physical, earthy organism, where the air body gives the power of thought, right? So I'm highlighting that. The air body, the mental body, gives the power of thought. The fire body, the astral body, it gives the power of motion and emotion. And finally, the water body, the etheric body, gives the power of reproduction and growth. This is why your etheric body is related to and symbolized by your imagination, your third eye, your pineal gland. That's the etheric body. And it's here that you create, that you reproduce, that you replicate. You don't do that in the astral. In the astral, you give those things motion and emotion. "65. Occultists call the dark air body the mental sheath." So the dark, and it's dark because he explained earlier, the mental plane can be seen as a dark nebula of mind stuff. We remember from the Sanskrit learnings that relates to a word called chitta, the substance that consciousness uses to manifest itself as thought, as idea, as memory. So occultists call the dark air body the mental sheath, the flaming fire body the astral sheath, the humid water body the vital sheath, and the physical body the dense chemical sheath. And you know that he's referencing the, what do you call those things? The koshas. You know he's referencing the koshas because kosha means sheath. He could have used any other word, but the fact that he's using the word sheath to describe these things, this is a direct reference to the koshas described in Tattvashuddhi, described in Samkhya Darshan, and Samkhya in general. So the mental body, that's the Vijnanamaya kosha, the koshas. The flaming fire body, that is the Manomaya kosha. The humid water body, that's the Pranamaya kosha. The physical body, that's the Annamaya kosha. So he's basically just translating into English information and data that has been here for 5,000 to 10,000 years, if not more. 5,000 on record, but those records refer to this information being here for over 10,000 years. These bodies one within the other, and interpenetrating each other, compose what the human mind recognizes as its vehicle of consciousness, right? I just said that. What the human mind recognizes as its vehicles of consciousness. Through the mental body, man secures that reflection and thought which make him greater than the animal. Through the astral body, he secures those qualities of motion and emotion, sense, color, and feeling, and many other qualities, the expression of which makes the animal superior to the plant. Through the etheric body, he gains the power of reproducing his species, and also the functions of assimilation and excretion. Let me go ahead and highlight this, because again, he's breaking down and describing these different koshas. And I tell you, in Taught with Shruti, she didn't even break it down like this. She gave us a general overview that there exist these koshas, but she didn't even go into this level of detail, which is why Bobby Hemmett said, he who reads one book reads none. You got to put the pieces together, because honestly, it would be too much to expect one human being to give you everything. That's even lazy in a way. We Grow Natural says, wow, that's amazing. I agree. It still amazes me. Alright, so we just talk about, I'll just read it again because this is crucial information. Through the mental body, man secures that reflection and thought which make him greater than the animal. Through the astral body, he secures those qualities of motion and emotion, sense, color, and feeling, and many other qualities, the expression of which makes the animal superior to the plant. Through the etheric body, he gains the power of reproducing his species, and also the functions of assimilation and excretion. For in these things, the plant is greater than the mineral. Of course, the mineral, by its actual existence, proves its superiority over the myriads of swirling, gaseous, formless essences which have not yet even the power of appearing in the physical world. So, before you look down on rocks, minerals, and crystals as being this low life form, because minerals and crystals are alive, even minerals and crystals and whatnot are superior to those aspects of consciousness that don't even have the power yet to manifest. And could it be that's why working with crystals assists us in manifestation? Could that be why working with crystals allows us to attract or repel certain forces, right? Forces which have not incarnated yet. The crystals are superior to those forces, some of them. Hence why you can have a crystal and it could give you good luck or help you to focus, etc., etc. None of the occult should be make-believe. It should all make sense. It should all check out, pan out. And then you take this information and you go test it, right? You look back and you track, has the crystals done that for me so far? And is there a way that I can test to see if it will continue to do this for me in the future? Maybe I'll get a different crystal that says it does X, Y, Z, and let me see if it does help me with whatever it's supposed to help me with, right? This is how you figure it out for yourself. We just got a letter, we just got a letter, we just got a letter. I wonder who it's from. Louis says it's all pieces of God, right? Because there's literally nothing that can exist that is not a piece of God. Literally nothing can exist that isn't a piece of God. I don't believe in God. As if it was an option. As if it was an option. The fish doesn't believe in water. But the water does not require the fish to believe in it. Earth doesn't require you to believe in her. In fact, you don't require you to believe in you. You're still here. Belief is not a requirement for existence. Belief is a requirement for change. Yeah, Micah. Peace. 66. Through the channels offered by this quaternary constitution, the consciousness, or ego, or spirit, views, cognizes, senses, and reflects upon its environments. Honor Soul says, anyone know a gem that's good for electric ground? Or could I just use simple metal? That's a good question. So through the channels offered by this quaternary constitution, and right, quaternary means four, so we're talking about those four bodies that we just described. The four channels offered allows the consciousness, allows the ego, allows the spirit to view, to cognize, to sense, and to reflect upon its environments, right? So that's one of the purposes of these four bodies, to reflect upon the environment that it is experiencing. Oh, that's a good one. Sir Bighead says selenite and quartz. Yeah, quartz. Honor to Soul, I know you specifically asked for a crystal or a gem, but maybe also check out a grounding mat. I've found that has been helpful for myself. In fact, I have 1 foot upon my grounding mat as we speak. So, the four bodies can be seen as channels to allow ego to experience its environment. The bodies may be called the hands and feet of spirit. Oh, that's a good metaphor. These bodies of ours may be called the hands and the feet of spirit. They are tools by means of which the abstract workman produces a concrete result. The physical and etheric bodies may be called the feet, for they are the foundation and the base. The astral and mental bodies may be called the hands, for they are the vehicles of attraction, repulsion, and ingenuity. The spirit, while superior to all its bodies, is incapable of manifesting without its chain of vehicles. This divine spark must always be limited by the quality of its bodies. In all too many cases, it is the servant of its own dependencies. In all too many cases, the spirit is the servant of its own dependencies. Instead of ruling its world by apostolic succession, the spirit is generally bowed and broken by the endless demands of the lower nature. Insert upside down pentagram here. The appetites, desires, and selfish propensities cast the spirit into a dungeon, while a false and cruel monarch rules the empire in his stead. Now we're getting to the description of the unicorn. But first we got to talk about the upside down pentagram. Alright, this is good too, because we just described those 4 bodies. We didn't get to the 5th element, which is spirit. And he says that all too often, spirit actually becomes a slave, a prisoner to these 4 bodies. The physical and the etheric body may be called the feet. Hence why when I teach about magic and how to do magic and whatnot, I focus a lot on the etheric body. Right? You already know about your physical body, etheric body. Those two together make stuff happen. Is the foundation and the base. He says that the astral and the mental bodies may be called the hands, for they're the vehicle of attraction, repulsion, ingenuity. Alright, that's where we're getting to some high magic. Alright, we're getting to some high magic when you're able to cause change by attraction, repulsion, and ingenuity, genius. Now keep in mind the spirit is superior. It's superior to all those other bodies. Mic check. Michael check. 1 2. Are we good now? Are we good? Let me make sure. Yeah, we're good. Yo, Magus says, put both feet on the mat now. So the spirit, being superior to all 4 bodies, it's incapable of manifestation without the chain of vehicles. So the spirit is not going to manifest anything without the mental body, astral body, etheric body, physical body. But check this out. As spirit, as a kosh, purely in this state, there's no reason to manifest anything. Because what have I said about a kosh before? A kosh, the black egg, the black seed, the black dot, this is the point of existence where beginning, middle, and end are all wrapped up together in one single instance, one single moment. So there's no need for manifestation if you're at this level, because everything is everything. It's already there. It's impossible to have desire at this level. It's impossible. Why? Because anything to be desired is right one and the same with desire itself. Now, when you descend from that level and enter the mental plane, you're now separated from the causal plane. It's called the causal plane, right? The cause. You become separated from the causal plane when you hit that mental body. And even further when you go down to the astral, etheric, and finally physical. By the time you hit physical, you've entered time and space. So not only are you separated from your desires through time, now you're separated through space. And even if you achieve it, or you think you achieve it, it's impermanent because you exist in time and space. So if you have a bloodthirsty desire for eating a wedding cake, after long toil you may actually get it, and you may eat the whole thing, but once it's eaten, it's gone, and you're going to desire it again. Very few of us have satisfied our desires by actually achieving them. Very few of us have satisfied our desires by actually achieving them. Put some marinara sauce on that. Devin Kroger, peace. Mike Hawk says, at what point can you trust your own gnosis, being able to get all the answers from source, and no longer have to depend on books? A lot of adepts claim to no longer read books because they have access to answers from the source of it all. What do you think about this? Well, knowing human beings and knowing how the ego works, if I hear someone say that, I mean, hey, if that's what they believe, that's what they believe. Maybe it's true. I don't know. But from knowing human beings and human behavior, that's usually not the case. But from an individual standpoint, you do get closer and closer to that level, because again, I'm sure that you said that because I was describing the Akashic level, right, being one and the same with the answer with the question. The process of us utilizing these bodies, physical, etheric, astral, mental, the whole point of this thing is so that we can move our conscious awareness back up to that point, so we can have an awareness of existence at that point, right? It's then that you break free of the matrix, right? So you don't go into another world where you can have more things to desire. You are at the same point of existence with the thing to be desired. It's all there. It's called eternity. So for a person to be able to get to a point where it's like, you know, my own Gnosis, I don't read books. The main thing is to learn about learning, right? Learn about your process of learning. If your learning style is to pick up a book and read it again and think about it and read some more, that's your learning style. If your learning style is listen to videos and then you get it, right? If your learning style is watching somebody, or maybe even teaching and talking it out is your learning style, because hell, that's my learning style. That's why I do this. Selfish. When you learn your learning style, you can dive into it more, and you'll begin to notice that there are patterns, right? You begin to notice the patterns. Just like what I was saying earlier about ChatGPT or consciousness expanding to the point that it requires a new capacity to contain itself, right? If you've only got about the knowledge of 5 books and then you master them, you're going to need to expand to continue growing. Now, in this process of expansion, when it comes to dealing with large numbers and large quantities, it's inevitable that you see patterns. Now, at some point, it's going to go from learning data to learning about patterns. When you get to that point, you're going to need less and less books. Why? Because now you're moving from content to context. When you move to contextual learning instead of content learning, that's when you start to not require books, and you can get it from your own Gnosis. Before that point, no, it's a lie. It's to make themselves look cool online. But if you can get to a point where you're starting to learn about the patterns that make patterns, then you can get then you can realistically say, I'm getting this from my own Gnosis. Because otherwise, what are you getting it from? You're getting it from pieces of content that you don't understand. To make it simple, if you read a bunch of these grimoires, eventually you'll see a pattern of how grimoires work. If you bake eggs, scrambled eggs, and omelets enough times, you won't need a recipe anymore. You'll intuitively know how it's done. Likewise, read these books to figure out the patterns. And once you figure out the patterns, you won't need them anymore. Let me know if that's clear. Mike Hawk. More soul. Peace, brother. Happy Gemini season. It's not my birthday yet, but when I was born, it was Gemini sun and Gemini moon. That's what it is right now. In about an hour and a half, we're about to get to Cancer moon. So I'll have to hurry up and make the Cancer moon video. The moon moves fast, man. The moon moves fast. Mo B, peace, peace. Sly, peace. Mike Hawk says, I get exactly what you mean. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. And see, that wasn't any kind of like hyper mystical answer about, oh, you have to. No, it's like, it's simple. It's simple. Because it expand past just the occult stuff. Look at anything else. Once you get to a point where you understand how the system works, you can take the training wheels off. All right, let's continue, because this is getting good. Spirit, right? Spirit is superior to all of its bodies. However, it is incapable of manifesting without its chain of vehicles. The divine spark must always be limited by the quality of its bodies. Your divine spark is limited by the quality of your bodies. The quality of the bodies determines the quality of the data that you're going to receive. Again, like I said, we're developing a mastery of the physical body, of the etheric body, of the astral body, and the mental body, because we want to improve the quality of those bodies so that we can improve the quality of the data that we receive, the data that we have to work with. If you have limited data, you got limited results by default. The better quality data you have, the better quality options you have. Let me know if that makes sense for you. Not just does what I say make sense, but does it make sense why you should be meditating, why you should be attempting to astral travel, why you should be studying this information? Because it allows you to have a better quality of data gathering experience. People who don't have quality data have very little options in what they can do. So what do you expect them to produce? If they have low quality data, they're going to produce low quality results. It's not about anybody having melanin. It's not about anybody being calcified pineal and none of that bullshit. It's regular basic logic, man. All that other stuff is emotional with an agenda. Like this video if you like it. Seems like we got more people viewing than like the video. And without the appropriate data, I mean, what am I supposed to believe? That a bunch of people here are just watching and listening, but they don't like it? That's the data that I have to go on. They'll have to assume that I'm being swarmed by bots. And I know that ain't true. So if you're real, like the video. Elisha Eternal says, like tuning an instrument for the right notes. Yes, exactly. Alright, let's keep going. That's your melanin. That's your melanin. Chatta chatta. Chatta chatta chatta. Okay. 67. Nope. Yeah, we're still on this. The divine spark must always be limited by the quality of its bodies. In all too many cases, it is the servant of its own dependencies. Right? So what we get is a person who is imbalanced. And this is typical. This is the common state. Right? An imbalanced, individualized consciousness. And this imbalanced consciousness puts more emphasis on the physical body, puts more emphasis on the astral or the etheric, as opposed to equally fleshing them all out. So if the quality of the data is low, then the divine spark is limited in its connection with you. He says, in all too many cases, it is the servant of its own dependencies. Right? So if that's the case, you've got your soul enslaved because you don't want to get right, because you're clinging on to things that are not true, things that you may have made up as a coping mechanism, as a defense mechanism, playing the game of being this versus that. Because whatever battles you think you have going on down here, that doesn't exist in the Akashic plane. That doesn't exist at the causal level. Hell, most of that stuff don't exist beyond the etheric level. Most of these dualities and dichotomies and wars and whatever does not exist beyond the etheric plane. It's an illusion. Most of the time people are fighting and battling over definitions as opposed to actual concepts. That's a waste of time. Arguing over God because your definition of God is different than my definition, yet the result of both of our gods does the same thing, right? You call it God, I call it universe, or whatever. You call it, we're not arguing over concepts, we're arguing over definition of words. That's terrible. Let's keep going. In all too many cases, it is the servant of its own dependencies. Instead of ruling its world by apostolic succession, the spirit is generally bowed and broken by the endless demands of the lower nature. The appetites, desires, and selfish propensities cast the spirit into a dungeon, while a false and cruel monarch rules the empire in his stead. That false and cruel monarch, that's your demiurge. That's your corrupted ego. Society Eject says, enslaving your own soul to look at Prithvi. I couldn't do it. No can do. Maybe in the past, but not ever again. I can't go for that. No. 67. Some of the ancient Greeks symbolized man and his body by the human hand. The 4 fingers represented the body with its 4 major divisions, while the thumb, which works with none of the fingers, but is useful because it is against the fingers and all of its functions, is used to symbolize the consciousness. In scripture, it is stated that God has set himself against his children. It is also interesting to note that man is the only creature that has a thumb working against the fingers. In even the highest simians, the thumb works with the fingers, being in reality only an extra digit. So notice the symbology there, the thumb working against the fingers, even as the scriptures say that God has set himself against his children. 68. Some ancient students have even correlated the 3 phalanges of the thumb with the Trinity. The first, the distal phalanx, including the nail, was held sacred to the Father, so that's the tip of your thumb, and its size and shape was used in determining your willpower. So look at the size and shape of your thumb and see if that determines the size and shape of your willpower. I mean, I guess you need something to compare it to, but The second phalanx was considered when analyzing the mental and reflective powers of the subject. Okay. While the third phalanx, which is usually large and forms part of the palm of the hand. Oh, okay, so that fat part of the hand where your thumb's connected to. When overdeveloped, was considered a symbol of a strong animal or physical nature, being sacred to the Holy Ghost, or the East Indian Shiva. Willpower, mental and reflection, animal nature. I see. Okay, that's interesting. 69. These 5 parts, the consciousness and its 4 bodies, were symbolized by the 5-pointed star or pentagram. This was known to medieval alchemy as the sign of the cloven hoof, and also as the Star of Bethlehem. According to the Pythagorean system of geometry, the Masonic apron, with its 4 points, or square, and the descending point of its triangular flap, symbolize the same thing. Ah, slick. There's your Gmail logo right there. The lower flap conceals the mystery of the murder of Hiram, The raising of the flap symbolizes his resurrection. So if you raise that flap, then that would turn the star upside down, would it not? Excuse me, that would turn the star right side up. So speaking of that resurrection, right? The mystery of the murder of Hiram, you've got the inverted pentagram, and the raising of the flap symbolizes his resurrection. Something to think about here. 70. The average individual does not realize that life, consciousness, and intelligence are separate. Let's run that back. The average individual does not realize that life, consciousness, and intelligence are separate and apart from physical substance. So you got physical substance, you have intelligence, which even a grasshopper has. You got consciousness, which even a grasshopper has. You have life. Four things that are all independent of matter, merely functioning through chemical bodies during the temporary span which we call life in the chemical world. One of the great occult laws is that to function in any sphere or plane of substance and nature, you must have a body sensitive to and capable of adjustment with that plane of substance. If you've been listening to my channel or studying the stuff that I recommended for any amount of time, this should be a principle that you know already. Right? Ophiel has said this. Dion Fortune has said this. Many others have said this. Hell, I remember E.A. Coetting was talking about working with spirits on different planes. And depending on the plane, you had to gather a sufficient substance of that plane, right? So again, the average individual, yeah, I'm gonna highlight that too. Your average TikTok consumer does not realize that life, consciousness, and intelligence are separate and apart from physical substance, merely functioning through chemical bodies during the temporary span of which we call life in the chemical world. One of the great occult laws is that to function in any sphere or plane of substance in nature, you must have a body sensitive to and capable of adjustment with that plane of substance. The student must realize that each body is capable of domineering over the others. You got to realize that each body is capable of domineering over the others and of being dominated by superior and stronger forces, right? To abnormally develop any phase of the nature is to create a tyrant that, because of superior strength, will vampirize and tyrannize over all the other parts of the nature. So what we see very often and very frequently are people who are so externalized with their awareness that their physical chemical body dominates their etheric body, astral body, and mental body, to the point where they can't even receive and interpret properly the data that they're getting from their mental body, from their astral body, let alone intuition, right? That's why it's so difficult for many of these people to have and develop like a real relationship with spirit, because they're so externalized. The development of their bodies is imbalanced. Everyone has an existence on the etheric plane and the astral plane and the mental plane, but everyone doesn't have a developed experience. Hell, you may be the equivalent of a crystal on the astral plane. You may be the equivalent of a crystal, of a rock, on the mental plane. The same way that he talked about this process of evolution down to the physical, that process is supposed to continue back upwards. You came down through those planes, and that's how you manifested here. But now, just like what Dion Fortune said, it's like a boat race. You got the buoy all the way down there in the water, and you got to drive your boat around it, and you have to cross it and come back around. That same process is what's going on here. When you touch down on this physical plane, you're supposed to be gathering data in such a way that allows you to develop those vehicles. Otherwise, the physical vehicle is going to dominate, and you're not going to have any desire to go back, as you see with most people. The desire's there, but the desire isn't strong enough to actually do it. Just like when he talked about the crystals are superior to these forces that aren't strong enough to manifest in the physical plane. Well, guess what? There's forces right here in the physical plane that aren't strong enough to create a sufficient existence on the astral. There's people who don't have enough strength of awareness to develop a presence on the mental plane, nor do they want to, and that's all right. This is an infinite universe. Infinite. In fact, time and space don't exist. Once you get up to that level of a kosh, everything is everything at the same time, in the same place. That's the default state of reality. That is reality. The further we are away from that, the more we go into illusion, into unreality. But the thing is, if we don't take the time to figure out what reality actually is, we believe that the illusion is reality. Society Eject says, yo, maybe this is what that scripture means. And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Yeah. I can dig it. I can say that. And that's all right. Look at that 5-pointed star. Man as the sacred 5-pointed star with spirit hovering above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? It is the power given by wisdom and knowledge that makes the occultist superior to his fellow man, his superiority being proportionate to his superior intelligence. Again, it is the power given by wisdom and knowledge that makes the occultist superior to his fellow man, his superiority being proportionate to his superior intelligence. If you have this book, you can highlight that for ego's sake. I'm highlighting it. Alright, let's continue. Underworld God 500, peace. So altogether now, it is the power given by wisdom and knowledge that makes the occultist superior to his fellow man, his superiority being proportionate to his superior intelligence. In every walk of life, the uninitiated will be confronted with the mysteries. To the average person, the working of a gasoline engine is just as mysterious as calculus would be to a kindergarten child. The average working of a gasoline engine is just as mysterious as calculus would be to a kindergarten child. But intimate relationship and study will result in that familiarity which gives ease in handling and intelligence in directing. In other words, yes, there are things that you do not know, things that you're not confident in, things that you're not even aware of. But guess what? He says intimate relationship and study, right? Intimate relationship with the subject matter and study of the subject matter does what? It results in the familiarity. You become familiar with it. It results in the familiarity, which gives ease in handling and intelligence in directing. So after study and practice and developing a relationship with your subject matter, you get an ease in handling it and you get intelligence in directing it. That's the magic. Hard work, discipline, consistency. Earlier, homie asked the question about, you know, people who say that they don't need to read anymore, like they got their Gnosis unlocked or whatever. Well, you know, I don't know these people, so I don't know if they're lying. But what that would look like for someone telling the truth is they've developed an intimate relationship in their study, right? To the point where they have an ease in handling the information and they have an intelligence in applying the information. As an observer, you should see results. For somebody to say something like that, I don't need to read books no more, I just get it from my Gnosis. You should see something in that person's expression that reflects that reality. Matthew Watson, peace. It has been well said that no man is a stranger to his own valet. The philosopher is a servant of God, and by perfect serving, soon becomes capable of thoroughly understanding the desires and dictates of his divine master. I am that I am. Peace. Welcome, welcome. Now we can start the party. Basketball player who's the best rapper every day. You can indulge in reality. I'm not saying you got to be some kind of separate person, but when it comes to like hanging out with friends of that nature, if that's all there's to talk about, yeah. But is that all you're doing? There's mindset, right? How you process reality. There's actions, right? There's results. There's fruit. There's all kind of things. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become rich. Doesn't mean that you get everything you want. Doesn't mean that you know, it doesn't mean anything specific. But you should be able to tell that there's something different, and not just smoke and mirrors different, not just parlor tricks different. But then again, if you don't know any better, then how would you know? All right, let's continue. The philosopher is a servant of God, and by perfect serving, soon becomes capable of thoroughly understanding the desires and dictates of his divine master. Oh, excuse me. Coca-Cola. 72. There is a real science even in pegging shoes. Only after years of apprenticeship can man hope to master any craft. In spite of the terrible caste system in India, it is interesting to note that an individual who excels even in the simplest thing is given recognition and may mingle with those of superior caste. There are but few who excel in anything, while of mediocre people in all walks of life, the number is legion. Have you ever watched an individual who is handling with impunity tremendous units of electrical energy? If so, you realize that knowledge is power. The electrician is safe because he knows the laws of governing the thing with which he is working. But should the electrician become careless for a moment, or a person who knows nothing of electricity attempt to do the same thing, he courts instant destruction. Just like Valis in the chat earlier was talking about how Yahweh punishes evil people. And this was my response. Yahweh, being the formula of manifestation, punishes ignorance and rewards diligence. The Bible verse says, "Study to show thyself approved, an honorable workman of God." Study to show thyself approved. So that looks like the example that he just gave. Somebody working with tremendous amounts of electrical energy because they studied the craft, they know what they're doing, they pay attention, they know what to pay attention to, versus someone who didn't study and doesn't know anything. yeah, they'll get punished. They'll get rewarded for that ignorance. Prakriti is not sweet and gentle when it comes to those kind of things. MC Maestro says, so Trav, are you saying that if you're not on your game, then you will be among the enslaved legion of one on their shit? It's inevitable. It's inevitable. As long as we seek an experience with other human beings, it's inevitable. We are all hoes to some pimp. Some of us are pimps to some hoes. Look at your life. Look at your life. It's inevitable. As long as you are dealing with human beings, you're going to be one or the other. Find the balance that works for you. Sometimes it's good to be one. Sometimes it's not so good to be the other. It all depends on the context. It all depends on the context. I don't necessarily want to be a homeowner. At this point in my life, renting is good for me because I don't want to deal with all that other stuff that comes with it. That works for me. Now maybe in the future I'll change my mind, and if I do, it's my responsibility. It's on me now to learn the necessary information to get to that point. Sometimes it's good to be one or the other. It depends on the context. Neither role is inherently negative or positive. There's plenty of people with a lot of money and a lot of responsibility that are very stressed out. How many work at like a retail job and you know better than anybody else that the manager, not the store manager, but the manager over you gets paid more, but they got to deal with shit that you don't even want to touch with a 8-foot pole. Oh yeah, they get paid more, but you don't want that responsibility at all, right? You might be up under that manager, but who they're up under is far worse. Your screw-ups can get them fired. Elastic Eternal says, right, I'm tired of signing contracts. It literally depends on you. It literally depends on you and what you want out of life, what you're doing. Nothing is inherently good or evil, positive or negative. And y'all know that. Y'all know that. We all these names that I'm seeing here, we've been through this. We know, y'all know. But like what he was saying here, and I'm gonna highlight that because that's a good line. He says here, there are but few who excel in anything, while of mediocre people in all walks of life, the number is legion. A lot of people are afraid of AI taking their jobs. A lot of people are afraid of being replaced. Well, that's a choice. That's a choice. Can you see how that's a choice to be replaced? How that's a choice to lose your job to AI, to an algorithm, Perhaps it's time to learn something new so that you can stay relevant. And the classic argument always pops up, well, AI will never be better than humans, will never replace humans. AI does things faster, better quality, right? Cost less. Don't let the pride of fear reactions override common sense. The reason that these jobs are getting replaced is because this algorithm can do it better than a human being. That's why it's happening. So maybe it's time to learn something else, or learn a different way to do what you do. Or maybe I'm the bad guy. Who knows? It's up to you. Let's continue. Man as the sacred 5-pointing star with the spirit hovering above. Hold on just a second. I'll be right back. All right. Yamaika says the art isn't better yet. Make sure you add yet to the end of that statement. The thing about this stuff is that we're seeing the potential. It hasn't reached its full maturity yet. In fact, this is literally the infancy. It's just beginning. It will get there. But its purpose isn't to replace anything. It's a tool. So being an artist, it's our responsibility to learn how to utilize these tools. The same way that people were getting upset with digital art, Photoshop, right? People who produced movies with film didn't like the digital aspect. Music producers who recorded analog didn't like digital. This is a process that it just continues. Auto-tune didn't put singers out of business, but you see now that it created new lanes, new avenues for people who can't sing. It also enhances people who actually can sing. They're just tools. Like I said, we're not at AI yet. We're still at IA, which is intelligence augmentation, which means that we use it to augment the intelligence that we currently have. That's where we are now. Right now, it's intelligence augmentation. These things augment. So if you're an artist, you should be learning how to utilize these things in your current practice. Adobe, I don't know if it's fully out yet. I think it's still in testing, but they have it to where you can sketch something on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, and it'll go ahead and work up prototypes for you, right? So I can sketch out a logo and run it through their AI, and it'll give me different potential logos based on a pencil sketch that I did. That's augmentation. That saves me a tremendous amount of time. Right now I can take that and get to work with it. As a person who does videos, right? Anybody who's done little shorts and content with subtitles now, that's AI. Before, you had to manually type those subtitles. I know because I had to do it. You had to manually type those subtitles, and then you had to pay someone to do it for you, and it took days. Now it takes seconds. You just put the video in, and it not only does it put the words for you, but it puts a little bubble over which word you're reading at the moment. My advice is to learn about this as much as you can while the general public is still ignorant. That's my advice. Learn as much as you can right now while no one else knows about it. Society Eject says, now you can have a green screen without a green screen. Now you can have color correction without knowing how to do that. It shouldn't be a replacement for creating. It's a tool to augment. It's your Iron Man suit. Jarvis. Uh-oh, that's it right there, MC Maestro. MC Maestro says IA is no different from tarot or any other divination system. Now you're starting to get ahead of what I'm about to do next, but I'm gonna keep that zipped up. You're exactly right, MC Maestro. You're exactly right. And if you follow that train of thought, you're gonna come to some other exciting conclusions, my friend. I love it. No different from talking to any spirit. No different from asking Siri to augment me. Excuse me. No different from asking Citri to augment me in my pursuit of cheek slapping. '73. The laws of nature obey no man. They know neither virtue nor vice, like the one-eyed cyclops of the Greeks. They are giants that fulfill their predestined work. unmoved by right or wrong use of their forces. Hell, speaking of AI and IA, they're no different than the angels that uphold the universe. Literally no different. ChatGPT is no different from Raphael, Sandalphon, Gabriel, Metatron. Same thing. Same exact thing. MC Maestro. Not that there is a pursuit. I gave that up a long time ago. '73. The laws of nature obey no man. They know neither virtue nor vice. Like the one-eyed cyclops of the Greeks, they are giants that fulfill their predestined work, unmoved by the right or wrong use of their forces. Unmoved. Just like people can ask ChatGPT how to build a bomb, or how to build a drone with C4 attached to it, and put me out a face recognition program so I can track my target and send it out so I'll be undetected and all evidence will be destroyed. You can ask that and it'll give you the answer to it. Right or wrong, these forces of nature don't care. They're just here to serve. They know no virtue nor vice. They fulfill their predestined work, unmoved by the right or wrong use of their forces. The wise man obeys the laws of the substances with which he works, and thereby causes these substances to work for him. But let him for one instant break the laws of the energies which he is controlling, and they destroy him without compunction or discrimination. That's like being a master of a tiger or a pet lion or an alligator or some type of like terrible serpent, right? You see these people and they're handling these creatures that can easily kill them with extreme ease. It takes a special kind of mind to do something like that. I like that. The wise man obeys the laws of the substances with which he works. And there you obey the laws of the substances that you work with. Man, this is some good stuff right here. And thereby and by obeying the laws of the substance that he's working with, he thereby causes these substances to work for him. That's why Travis Magus can come out with a class that's called How to Work with Any Spirit Safely and Efficiently. Well, if you understand the foundational laws and principles, you can tame a lion and a tiger and a python. But let him for one instant break the laws of the energies which he is controlling, and they destroy him without compunction or discrimination. I really like that line. I'm gonna have to quote that. Put a star next to it with the tip pointing upwards. '74. An occultist is an expert in the science of life. As an operative magician, he is able to manipulate the forces of nature to the gratification of whatever end he may desire. But woe to him if those ends are not in harmony with the natural plan. Woe to him if his ends are not in harmony with the natural plan. Do y'all understand that? It's not about no damn threefold law. It's not about no karma's gonna come back and get you, right? That's all human stuff. What the actual deal is, you're dealing with forces, and you must understand the rules of these forces, the laws of these forces. You obey the rules and the laws of these forces, and you have mastery over them. They submit to you now. Daddy of demons. However, if you ignore these laws, if your intentions of these forces don't line up with the nature of these forces, if it's not harmonized with these forces, shit, it's gonna be your worst day. Worst day. Maintain your frame. Be ever vigilant. Exert your influence. Always be leading. Y'all ever heard that before? Amon-Ra Central says, his only mind's blurry. Hard to read the text, Trav. Well, I can only do so much, man. Get the book. It's only $5 or less. I think the PDF is even free. Visual OD says, don't stick your tongue in an electrical socket and complain about the results. Right. Right. Society EJ says, LOL, yep, prime example. I had a buddy that wouldn't listen to me about pit bulls, and he learned that day. Shit, right. Some of those lessons, you only need to learn once. Maintain your frame. Be ever vigilant. Exert your influence. Always be leading. Richard Tracy says, I've been listening. Just wanted to say that this book has blown my mind like 400 times. Man, I thought I'd be much further along. But I hate for gems to be overlooked. That's really the whole point of these book studies, to really break down what's in these verses, man. This guy has a full grasp on the content. This isn't something that he bought on Amazon and copied and rewrote. This man has a full grasp on this information here. Whew. MMK says, I'm in alignment. I was just listening to his audio on YouTube, and then you were live reading his book. Will this help me understand values on a deeper level? Where can I get the PDF? Absolutely. Absolutely. Get this book. Get it. Like I said, it's $5 on Amazon. If you can't do that, you're gonna have to Google PDF of Natural Magic, whatever the book's called, Magic, a treatise on natural occult. Just, you have to Google it. It's out there. It exists. Somebody here in this chat actually did find the PDF, so it's out there. I don't have it, but somebody here has downloaded it, so just Google it. And if you must know, we're currently on verse 74, but the whole book is fire. Love it. Underworld God 500 says, bro, I said this last night. You don't always have to experience some fuck shit to know better. Everything is not for everybody. Right. And as a wise person, right? Hell, if you're an occultist, you shouldn't have to experience it. You should know how to glean wisdom from the experiences of others. Again, saving you time and effort and money and pain and suffering and all number of things. Like I said earlier, there's three roles. You can either be on one side or the other side, clashing and opposing each other. You can do that. Or you can be in that third perspective, which is the observer, analyzing, studying, and maybe even reporting what you've studied, which is what I do. I don't give a damn about anybody's side. It's an illusion anyways. But when you're on those sides, that's when you take that beating. That's when you take that beating. Woe to the occultist who starts dealing with these high-level forces and gets involved with some knucklehead human stuff. Anyways, let's get back to this. Peace, my friends. Anna Molly, good to see you, as always. Dark Reaper 12, peace. Dark Reaper 12 says, darn, came in late. How much more of the chapter is there? There's actually 16 more pages. I'm contemplating whether or not I should break it in half and come back in a couple of days. Society Ejects, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I am gonna break it in half. Serious Suit 888, peace. The secret teaching of all ages by Manly P. Hall is fire. Peace to the live everyone. Yeah, I need to get that one. I'm not sure how long it is. Isn't that one like 500 pages? Because the one I have is Man, the Symbol of the Grand Mysteries. Veronica Archagas says, for real. Yes, ma'am. Peace, Society Ejects. Underworld God 500 says, a wise man learns from the mistakes of his own, but a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others. Alright, let's keep going with this. Real quick. I want to let you guys know, if you weren't here last time I mentioned this, I am reopening my membership, right? And the main thing is, I've talked to so many people who feel like they're kind of lagging behind, right? That they're missing something. And a lot of people that I talk to feel like they want to chime in with like the group conversations, but they don't feel like they're at the level as some of the people who speak. And it's like, you are, and how do you think you'll get there? You have to jump in the conversation and keep going. So I understand a lot of people might feel like, okay, well, I'm not quite there. Well, with this membership, what I want to do here is provide the fundamentals so that you can have an understanding of all these phrases and terms and all the stuff that we talk about. All the Vedic stuff, right? The Kabbalah stuff, the tarot stuff, astrology stuff. This really is all about getting your correspondences in line. It's about getting your correspondences in line. When you have your correspondences lined up, you can have the conversation. And even if you don't plan on jumping on one of these live streams, you'll be able to efficiently have this conversation with yourself. Somebody in the chat earlier was talking about, how do I know when I don't need books anymore and I can just pull from my own gnosis? Well, like I said to him, it's about learning these patterns. And you learn these patterns, like I said earlier, by gathering data, gathering large amounts of data so that you can see the pattern. Now, in this specific instance, the data is astrology, tarot, Kabbalah, and the fundamental principles of magic. When you get those things understood, you got it. Now the goal is to just keep spinning around so that it sinks in deeper. But yeah, basically it's going to be, it's going to have a page with videos about each subject on it. We're going to have different book reads that I might not be able to do on YouTube. Notice, because I had a recent issue, so we're just going to reel it into somewhere behind closed doors. Book readings and all that other stuff too. So, letting you know. Give me 1 second. All right. So, to continue, an occultist is an expert in the science of life. As an operative magician, he is able to manipulate the forces of nature to the gratification of whatever end he may desire. But woe to him if those ends are not in harmony with the natural plan. By means of his knowledge, he may work miracles, like the magicians of India. But his feats are miraculous only to those who do not know as much as he does concerning the subtle forces of nature. The control which knowledge gives over ignorance on the spiritual planes of nature is very much like the control that wealth gives over property in the physical world. Ooh, let that one sink in. Let that one sink in. Let me highlight that. So think about the control that wealth gives over property, right? A wealthy person owns property, and people who do not own that property have to pay rent, have to pay something to the owner there. They're not in control of that property. The owner can do what he wants with it, raise the price, sell it off, do whatever he wants. But a person that doesn't have that type of money or influence, they're at the whims of the person who does have the influence. Right? Now check that out. In that same relationship, that's what's happening on the spiritual plane. Ooh. Spiritual ignorance is just like being broke, busted, and disgusted on the physical plane. Having spiritual wisdom, spiritual power, is like being wealthy in the spiritual plane. Does that make sense? Is that not enough of a reason to really get serious about your study? Shit, I'm gonna have to put a star next to that as well. God bless America. The control which knowledge gives over ignorance on the spiritual planes of nature is very much like the control that wealth gives over property in the physical world. Man. Wealth may be a blessing or a curse. So may knowledge, which is mental wealth. The wise man will always be master of the fool, for he has a mentality which is capable of demanding respect, and the fool must bow down to that thing which he cannot comprehend. Are y'all seeing the same words I'm seeing? I don't know if y'all seeing the same words I'm seeing. I don't know if y'all seeing the same exact words that I'm seeing. I'm gonna end up highlighting this whole page. This man said, wealth may be a blessing or a curse. So may knowledge, which is mental wealth. The wise man will always be a master of the fool, for he has a mentality which is capable of demanding respect, and the fool must bow down to that thing which he cannot comprehend. And this damn sure ain't just words on a page. You can see this played out in reality. You can see this played out in reality. In every age, a few have come into the realization of nature's tremendous powers, and in one way or another, legitimate or otherwise, have become temporary wielders of the serpent scepter. As a man can steal money and remain wealthy until the law dispossesses him, so may a black magician steal a certain amount of divine power and manipulate it to the gratification of his own ends until at last his misuse of power destroys him. We've seen that happen a few times. During the later Atlantean world, not Atlanta, and again in our own modern civilization, there have been and are minds powerful but not virtuous. These two words are not always synonymous. Power and virtue do not always go together. 9 ether, peace. Righteous, peace. So we got both y'all in the building tonight. And see, Maestro says Darth Vader, right? Some of these perverted beings were actual demigods, as glorious as Satan himself. But their misdeed and falsities sent them hurling into oblivion like planets gone wrong. Ooh. These demon gods bred black magic, the perversion of power, in the minds of men, and to this time it has remained nurtured by man's besetting sin, selfishness. '77. Evil will never cease to exist until selfishness and greed are overcome as factors in dictating the attitudes of men. It is the common thing for the concrete mind to sacrifice the eternal to the temporal. It's a common thing. It's a common thing. So that means be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for this. This is a common quality. Again, not just words on a page. This is something that you have experienced personally. It is the common thing for the concrete mind. That's the mind of the five senses. That's your logic. That's your ego. It's a common thing for the concrete mind to sacrifice the eternal to the temporal. And a real basic example of that is you knowing you have something that you need to be doing for your spiritual journey, but you decide to do something else that is instantly gratifying instead. You might say, oh, I'll get to it after I do this. And after does not come. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and now you don't even keep your own word to yourself. So on top of not doing your work, now you feel subconsciously guilty. It is the common thing for the concrete mind to sacrifice the eternal to the temporal. Quality visions. Peace, brother, peace. Awesome, awesome. Man concentrating upon the limited area of the known. The known. It's a limited area. So you guys may not know this, but there's this, well, I mean, you might, right? Because I know a lot of you guys are interested in NLP and psychology. You've got these 4 quadrants of knowledge. There's stuff that we know that we know. There's stuff that we know that we don't know. There's stuff that we don't know that we know. And then there's stuff that we don't know that we don't know, right? That's that black area, that blind spot. There are things that we literally don't know that we don't know. But there are things that we know that we know. There's things that we know that we don't know. And there's things that we don't know that we do know. With that being said, he said, man concentrating upon the limited area of the known. The limited area of the things that you do know. So when we talk about learning and these light bulb moments and these epiphanies, right? These epiphanies and these light bulb moments, these are times when we approach something that we didn't know that we don't know, right? So you might think you got it all figured out about the occult, and then you read a book like this and you have these light bulbs going off because you didn't know, didn't even think about this, yet it makes sense. Yet you've seen examples of it. This is just like taking a torch into that dark area of the unconscious mind and lighting it up and being able to collect the gems that you had no idea were just behind the back of your head. Veronica says guilty. Not months, only a day or two guilty. Yeah. And it's a part of life. We have cycles and patterns. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel guilty. Just get up and do it. It's just like when meditating and you wanted to focus on a symbol for 45 minutes, but for 40 minutes you're trying to stay focused. You're correcting yourself from getting distracted, right? Don't beat yourself up. Don't force and squeeze and get mad. Just gently bring your focus back. Even if you only got 3 minutes of focus out of that 45-minute meditation, you did it. Most people won't even sit down and close their eyes. You did it. Just do better next time. Let's continue. It is the common thing for the concrete mind to sacrifice the eternal to the temporal. Man, concentrating upon the limited area of the known, loses sight of the effect of his actions upon the limitless area of the unknown. Richard Tracy says, what is that book title by Dhyana Darshan called that's frequently recommended by this society? Is it Dhyana Darshan? Is it taught with Shuddhi? Well, you have taught with Shuddhi, so you're not talking about that. You're talking about Dhyana Darshan? Well, Yeah, concentrating upon the limited area of the known, he loses sight of the effect of his actions upon the limitless area of the unknown. Short-sightedness, consequently, is the cause of endless misery. Short-sightedness, consequently, is the cause of endless misery. Shit, I'm gonna have to highlight the whole thing. Moral short-sightedness results in vice. Philosophical short-sightedness results in materialism. Religious short-sightedness in bigotry. Rational short-sightedness in fanaticism. Fanaticism is the result of rational short-sightedness. I've been fanatic about things in my past, and I can see how that is short-sightedness in being rational. I can attest to that one. Being short-sighted in morality, that's where vice comes into play. That's when doing things that aren't very moral makes sense and feel permissible to do. That comes from short-sightedness, not seeing the big picture. Being material is a result of being short-sighted and having a philosophical perspective, understanding. Bigotry, hatred of other people, that's a result of having a religious short-sightedness. '78. Wise is the man who serves the greatest end, whatever be the cost. The thing which men have called harmony, and which nature knows as perfect adjustment, is worth all that must be paid for it. Wise is the man who serves the greatest end. Whatever be the cost, the thing which men have called harmony, and which nature knows as perfect adjustment, is worth all that must be paid for it. Girl, that's a valuable thing. That's a valuable thing. When it's worth all that must be paid for it, we're talking about something on another level. Something on a whole nother level. Adjustment is the establishment of harmonious relationships between the universal planes of nature and the centers of body, consciousness, and man. Adjustment is the establishment of harmonious relationships. What kind of relationships? Harmonious relationships. Between what? Between the universal planes of nature and the centers of body, consciousness, and man. You've got to be in alignment. And that said alignment is worth whatever the cost. Unless, of course, you're short-sighted. 79. Selfishness promotes self-interest and self-gratification. Slowly the world about vanishes. The soul lives more and more to the attainment of its own desires. And before long, the rule of mammon is complete in that life. Richard Tracy, the book is called Dharana Darshan. I suppose I'll type it in the chat if you don't know how to spell it. Cool beans. This means that the best dies and only the shell of material personality remains. It means that the urge of aspiration is no longer felt, and that the spirit, immortal and superior, lives as the drudge of appetites and the bondservant of an animal organism, doomed to martyrdom within the prison walls of perversion. That's what selfishness leads to. Number 80. We live in an enlightened age. In those things pertaining to the body. We live in an enlightened age in those things pertaining to the body, but woefully ignorant concerning the things which are divine. Every day the spirit of commercialism is gorged with the lifeblood of millions. Every day the struggle of competition takes more of man's time and energy until the finer nature dies for want of consideration, and virtue is deemed an impediment to the progress of the material juggernaut. Every day the struggle of competition takes more of man's time and energy until the finer nature dies for want of consideration. So the finer nature begins to dissolve because we're not even paying attention to it. The soul or spirit, these finer aspects of the astral body, the mental body, the etheric body, starts to die away and dissolve simply because we spend our life not paying attention to it. Why? Because our prana and our focus and our awareness is spent struggling for competition. It's taken the energy away that could be used for our development, right? And virtue is deemed an impediment to the progress of the material juggernaut. All right, so instead of wanting to advance spiritually, instead of wanting to come to a better understanding of what spirit is, what are subtle aspects, what our purpose is on a higher level, instead of coming to understand that, the competition of material life takes up all of our energy. Until eventually that desire for ascension fades away. Again, something that you can see just by going out or even opening up your phone and looking at the rest of people. This turbidity of mental and moral outlook is the breeding place for the larva of black magic, the curse of the human race. Ooh. 81. He says black magic is a disease. It is a racial cancer. Its long tendrils are like those of an octopus. It infests church and state alike. It enters the hovel of the poor as false hope, leading him to crime and self-destruction. It enters the salons of the wealthy as ambition turns the heart of man into a scheming organ for the accumulation of opulence. This is good. Understand what he's referring to as black magic. Understand his definition of black magic and check that against yours. Is yours the same? So before you put judgment on what he's saying, check to see if your definitions are the same. He says it's a racial cancer. Black magic is a disease. Its long tendrils are like those of an octopus. It infests church and state alike. It enters the hovel of the poor as false hope, leading them into crime and self-destruction. It enters the salons of the wealthy, and as ambition turns the heart of man into a scheming organ for the accumulation of opulence. Black magic is bred in selfishness, nursed by greed, and tolerated only by hypocrisy, but nevertheless is a most common efflorescence of a commercial age. Magic is not a medieval superstition tutored by the spirit of ignorance. It is a very material fact. This so-called age of enlightenment is in reality only a transference of emphasis from one mental function to another. And while the spirit of arrogance and selfishness remains in the souls of men, they will sell their immortal spirits, as did Faust, for the gratification of self, or more correctly, the not-self. Honesty is a jewel of priceless value, and the forces of evil have little power over a life true to principle. Man, first by his covetousness, must offer his soul for sale before the devil is in any position to buy it. You gotta offer your soul up for sale before the devil come out to buy it. Think about that for all you folks who are scared of selling your soul to the music industry or the movie industry or whatever. You gotta offer it up for sale first now. I watched a YouTube short. It's about some actor. I think Matthew Lawrence or so. I don't know who that is, but apparently they said that his Soul Alibaba, nice. Apparently he was offered a role in the Avengers franchise or something like that. But his agents and people said that he had to go meet with this director, producer, some guy of influence, I don't know. And he has to meet him in a hotel room. And he gets there, the dude's in his towel. And he's like, if you want this role, right, we're going to have to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to get some photos out of this. And the dude's like, I don't think it's worth all that. And in doing so, ended up having, according to him, a lot of his career cut short. But I know a lot of people talk about these conspiracy theories of this artist did that, and this actress and actor did this, that, and the third. Which none of y'all know, because none of y'all been there. But people talk about it as if they were there. It is a good example, though. If selling your soul is an option, it had to have been offered up first. I'm just saying. '83. Nature is an endless area of crisscrossing energies. Those who have power can demand that these energies obey them, whether for good or ill. And senseless force must obey. Must obey. We're talking about elemental forces. We're talking about celestial forces. But force also has its laws and penalties, and man must obey the laws of force, or else suffer the consequences of his folly. The black magician in his selfish egotism, thinks himself greater than God or law, and continually breaks the rules of force. But sooner or later, like Faust again, he is destroyed by his own servant. We are told that Dr. Faustus actually lived in Germany in the Middle Ages. He had a familiar spirit who served him. One day, Dr. Faustus was found dead with a knife in his back, and the townfolk claimed that his elemental spirit had killed him. '84. In our modern world, black magic finds a fertile breeding ground in man's desires. Age after age, the wants of man destroy him. In ignorance, he plays with fire. In thoughtlessness, he ignores the immutable laws of nature, and then wonders why the tempests break about his head, why lava and ash bury his cities, why wars lay waste his lands, and mighty upheavals of the earth cause continents and nations to vanish in a single day. He neither obeys the laws of force nor recognizes that cause and effect rule all things, that day after day he reaps misery as the harvest of thoughtlessness. The white magician consecrates his life to study, meditation, and service, and he may know the law and may direct the force to its appointed ends. The force. He molds himself into the plan, becoming part of the divine rhythm by sacrificing himself and his wishes to the will of the infinite, asking only to know wherein his duty lies and how he may be of greatest service to the greatest number. 86. On the other hand, the black magician is firmly of the belief that he knows what he needs, when in reality, he only knows what he wants. He seeks to mold the plan into his own desires. He believes that the universe wants him to be greater than his fellow men, when the cosmic all does not... There's a period there. When the cosmic all does not know that he exists other than as a tiny atom, passing with myriads of similar things to an appointed end. Okay, there we go. He seeks to mold the plan to his own desires. He believes that the universe wants him to be greater than his fellow men, when the cosmic all does not know that he exists, other than as a tiny atom, passing with myriads of similar things to an appointed end. Now let us see how the magician, with his knowledge of the invisible side of nature, is able to manipulate the unseen forces, of nature. First, the student must be impressed with the fact that the wise man is seeking to know what nature desires him to do, while the foolish man knows already and tries to force nature to act as the servant of his whims. How many people tried that? How many tried forcing nature? And how does that work, especially with consistency? Or maybe it was just me. Well, '88. Nowhere is black magic more apparent than in the modern phases of religion. Nowhere is black magic more apparent than in the modern phases of religion. In both the new and old country doctrines, instead of emphasizing the will of the logos as the law of men, students have been taught to demand of the infinite and that he will obey. No man may justifiably demand anything except the fruitage of his own labors. Today, however, millions are seeking by the route of psychology and metaphysics to reap where they have not sown, believing that the possession of a knowledge which makes them greater than their brethren entitles them to enslave the weaker and uninformed. How many people feel that way? How many feel like the universe owes you abundance mainly because you're studying the occult? Let me highlight that. Instead of emphasizing the will of the logos as the law of men, students have been taught to demand of the infinite and that he will obey. No man may justifiably demand anything except the fruitage of his own labors. Today, however, millions are seeking by the route of psychology and metaphysics to reap where they have not sown, believing that the possession of a knowledge which makes them greater than their brethren entitles them to enslave the weaker and uninformed. 89. Let us now consider the four bodies of man as elements in magic and differentiate clearly between the right and the wrong function of these bodies. 90. First, we will study the bodies as a group. We may say that they were created to be the helpmeet of their Lord and Master, Spirit. For in truth, they symbolize Eve taken from the side of Adam. The attributes of these bodies are legion, for each has a character of its own. We may say the bodies of man as of children. We may say of the bodies of man as of children, train them when they are young in the way that they should go, and when they are gray, they will not depart therefrom. Our natures cannot be allowed to just grow like topsy, any more than children can be allowed to run around promiscuously and then be expected to amount to anything. Our natures must be trained, and there must be a definite understanding who is master and who is servant. Man. I am that I am says, so is he saying you can't use magic or the mind in any way to help your material state? Absolutely not. He is not saying that. No. What he is saying is that with every generation, it's really difficult to see, especially when you're young. Newer generations begin to adopt a new set of beliefs that can be interpreted as more and more entitled, right? Young folks today are way more entitled than my generation, and my generation feels way more entitled than my grandparents' generation, so on and so forth. But I don't really know what it was like back then, unless I talk to them, listen, and go back and watch documentaries. So likewise, the attitude towards life and magic was different in Manly P. Hall's day versus our day. Our day, we are extremely entitled in comparison. So we believe that if we just light a candle, we're gonna get our rent paid, right? Even if it's never happened before, we still wish for and believe these things by simply maybe crossing our fingers, lighting a candle, or maybe doing a spooky ritual. But the fact of the matter is, like Dion Fortune said, these things must happen through natural means. So even if you light a candle and burn some incense and sage and do whatever, you're still going to have to do something to open up the channel for that result to come flow into your life. If you're not willing to put in that kind of work, or any work for that matter, don't feel entitled to getting at that level of a result. But if you also listen to what the Swamis of the East said, you should be doing this stuff for your spiritual growth, and the stuff comes to you anyways. Or we can put it in a Bible verse. The Bible says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you." What that means is, the priority should be your concept of the Most High. Matter of fact, Manly P. Hall just said it on the previous page. What did he say? 2 pages ago. What did he say? Three pages ago, 4 pages ago. What did he say? Well, hold on. Did I pass it? I think I passed it. Anyways, he says something to the effect of... Dang. I don't remember where it was. Focus on the high point. That should be the goal. Where was that quote at? Oh well, I'm not going to be flipping through this all day long. I could have sworn I highlighted it too. Alright, well anyways, you get what I'm saying. Ooh, deja vu. Nice. So our natures must be trained, and there must be a definite understanding who is master and who is servant. MC Maestro says, I just listened to Myron Golden this week talk about focusing on the intent. Hell yeah. That guy knows his stuff for sure. He knows his stuff. Rest of that noise is the devil. Right. Yeah, I like Myron. He's cool. He's cool. "91. A near philosopher allows his mind to ramble, thus creating a host of abominable and absurd concoctions of witless thought. He involves himself and those about him in argument, dissension, and never-ending streams of self-contradiction. Ooh. He tries to solve the economic situation." Brother Panic, talk about that economic plan. He tries to solve the economic situation, creates new religions without learning the old. Oh, that's so annoying. People want to create their new religions and their new pantheons, this, that, and the third. But, you know. And buys his thoughts at pawn shops, his general purpose in life being to tear down something. I get an image in my head of a specific person reading this. He tries to solve the economic situation, creates new religions without learning the old, and buys his thoughts at pawn shops or TikTok. His general purpose in life being to tear down something. He is like some of the writers of medieval literature who strove to give the impression that other authors were liars. Yikes. A hater, a general hater. 92. His mind, which should clarify the issues of life, does nothing but complicate them, and is used only as a means of finding gratification for the senses and thrills for the nervous system. His emotional organism is a mass of appetites and whims. He mistakes ambition for aspiration. He mistakes cowardice as prudence. He mistakes greed for economy, and he mistakes lust for love. Yikes. That sounds real familiar. So we may repeat that through all of this chain of bodies, we see that the consciousness, instead of being clarified by its bodies, becomes involved by them every day. Imagine that. You came down here for liberation, and you get wrapped up in this nonsense. Alright, check this out. My phone is getting hot. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let this thing cool off for a little bit. Toyota's hot, hot, hot. Black Knight says, will you do a book reading on Manly P. Hall, The Occult Anatomy of Man? The book is 72 pages. It is definitely not 72 pages. I got it in the other room. That book is thick. 72 pages. This book is 60 pages. You must have, your version must be 15 inches tall. 72 pages. That's a good point, MC Maestro. MC Maestro says, I don't even think it's TikTok wisdom. It's the seeker looking for what he or she already believes, regardless of the caliber of info. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's keep going while my phone cools down. It's gotten pretty hot over these hours. 9, 10, 11, 12. Has it been 3 hours? Almost. Alright, we'll go for another 20 minutes and see how far we get. See how far we get. Okay. We may say, by the way of definition, that white magic is the service of the real, the consecration of life to the protection and unfolding of the real. It is the use of the forces of nature for the good of all. Black magic is the use of wisdom and its accompanying power to gratify sensation, ambition, desires, greed, and that medley of function which we call the personality. So there's your definition. Its inevitable result is the destruction of the entire spiritual physical structure. 93. The white magician seeks to gain control over himself. Oop. The white magician seeks to gain control over himself. The black magician seeks to obtain control over others. Man has 4 centers of consciousness, 4 tangible assets, which he may consecrate to the attainment of reality. His mind, his heart, his vitality, his physical body. So again, we just talked about those 4 sheaths. His mind, that's the mental body. His heart, that's the astral body. His vitality, that's the etheric body. His physical body, that's the physical body. A man may be forced to serve another if that one can temporarily or permanently secure dominion over any of these 4 centers. I'll read that again. A man may be forced to serve another if that one can temporarily or permanently any of those 4 centers. That's his mind, his heart, his vitality, and his physical body. To secure dominion over the physical body of another is to make that person a slave. To secure control over the vital body is to steal the vitality of another person, as in vampirization, where one person lives off the life essences of another. Whoa. A common example of this can be seen when young people are brought up in the association of elderly people. The radiant energy of the child is sapped by the older person. As a result, such children are usually very nervous and seldom strong. Another example of the control of the vital system is to be found in mediumship, when decarnate spirits take ectoplasm from the spleen of a medium in order to materialize. This usually results in the nervous and physical exhaustion of the medium, for he has given his own life as a vehicle to the outside intelligence. 94. The astral body is usually attacked through an excess of feeling, such as religious frenzy, grief, fear, or hate. When a person realizes that he can influence others while they are incapable of reasoning because of emotional excess, and awakens these emotional excesses for the purpose of influencing the weaker ones, as in the case of an evangelistic revival, such an instigating mind is a black magician. The sending of love, hate, or similar feelings to another, in the hope of awakening a similar condition in them for selfish or personal reasons, is also black magic. He's dropping gems that I did not expect. Gotta highlight that. spleen. (95) Mental black magic is far more complicated, for it includes practically all prosperity metaphysics, autosuggestion, mental suggestion, occult treatments, demonstration over environment and conditions in people, hypnosis, mesmerism, personality culture, and other varieties too numerous to mention. In one way or another, it includes practically all religious and economic graft. In fact, every method in which the power of one person over another is used for the aggrandizement of the stronger. It covers every method of gaining superiority except those based on an honest use of the merit system. Those who can do a certain thing better than others do not need black magic in order to excel at all. We find under perversions of this idea such business subjects as psychological salesmanship and the like. The systems advocated work admirably, but they bring endless sorrow to wherever attempts to use them. (96) People who use these false systems vindicate themselves, for the most part, on two unsound hypotheses. One, that God has intended man to have whatever his puny intellect desires. And two, that man knows what he needs. All of these are false assumptions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whew. Has anybody ever been vampired upon? Have you ever been hated or discriminated against? I have. Anamali says non-consensual energy suck. So glad I can avoid people like that now. Exactly. And one thing to remember about so-called psychic vampires is that they are usually not aware of what they are. Typically, a person who does that kind of thing doesn't understand. Now, I'm not saying, it's okay. I'm not saying to forgive it. I'm saying you set your boundaries, but hate the behavior, don't hate the person. They usually don't realize what the fuck's going on. And this goes for people who, not just older people who need vitality, so they take it from anyone they can, not just that, but also people who find themselves consistently caught up in drama. They cannot go very long without drama, right? Because they're feeding off of that emotional high that they cause within themselves and within other people. In fact, they need to drag other people into their shit so that they can have that emotional high. A psychic vampire is usually born out of trauma. There's some kind of trauma that happened, and that's the only way that they deem appropriate to gather the sustenance that they need to feel comfortable. Gotta set up your own boundaries, because like I said, most of the time these people are not aware of what they're doing, or at least they know how to do it, but they don't know that they are actually draining energy from another person. They don't understand that. Most people have never heard of an etheric body. So it's up to you. It's your responsibility to put distance between them and to put boundaries between you and them. Again, don't hate the person, hate the behavior. Alright. So I forgot how many pages I just counted. I think that was like 8 pages. I guess we'll tough it out. I didn't go to sleep, so I'm trying to stay up. Alright, how much coffee do I have left? Looks like I need to go siphon some energy from somebody, I guess. I got a shiny cup. That ought to do it. Let's continue. Alright, so number 1, or 96. People who use these false systems, right, of draining people. Oh, let me highlight the mental black magic too. I forgot that. Mental black magic is far more complicated. He says people who use these false systems vindicate themselves, for the most part, on unsound hypothesis. 1, that God has intended man to have whatever his puny intellect desires. 2, that man knows what he needs. Both of these are false assumptions. Man was not intended by God to be rich, wise, beautiful, healthy, witty, of charming personality, or happily married. This does not mean that the Lord has any objection to his being any of these things or all of them. It merely means that if he desires these things, he must go forth as Adam was directed to do, earning his bread by the sweat of his brow and not by the sweat of somebody else's. Man. There's a really cool diagram here. It's a shame my phone began to overheat at this point. The aura of man's consciousness is his dwelling place. It is his feudal castle. Though he can be driven from his home, from his world, that is his sanctuary. None has a right for good or ill to enter that sanctuary, other than by the door, any more than one would have a right to enter another's house by the kitchen window. The door of sanctuary in this case is the physical world, because here all men have the privilege of knowing their opponent. Here all have an opportunity to struggle against the thing they do not desire. Here your brother has the privilege of rejecting your proposition or of accepting it if such be his pleasure. He may let you into his house or keep you out, as he may see fit, for here at least there is one equality. Men may say yes or no according to their moral dictates, and may have the privilege of defending their integrity with their lives. All right, guys. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and tap out. Hey. I need to get up and go for a walk or something. So we'll resume this. We'll resume this a little bit later. Only 8 more pages. Hell, I might come back tomorrow. But I'm gonna go ahead and pause here, I'm falling asleep. Coffee ain't gonna cut it. So the moon has just now entered Cancer. I gotta do another video. Alright, so yeah, this was great. This was fun. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Otherwise, I'm gonna be trying to keep myself awake. All good. We'll be back later. Yeah. Page 51. If you got the book, then you see the big ass diagram here. Plus, that'll give me time to pick out the next book. Alright, so that's that. I'm gonna go ahead and tap out. Be on the lookout for the membership that's reopening at the entry of next month, which is in a few days. Be ready, be ready. There's going to be lots of information to keep you well fed every day on the topics of tarot, Kabbalah, astrology, and a bunch of other stuff. Alright? Alright. Have a good night, everybody. Like the video, like the video. Also, what are you guys thinking about the astrology shorts? You guys digging that? You guys liking the moon videos? After I go through all 12 of them, I'll probably just recycle them and maybe move on to more complex, right? Really, this is me like practicing how to make my own horoscopes and really tap into it. Because like I read horoscopes and astrology forecasts and it's cool, but I'm like, how do y'all come to these conclusions? Like, where do y'all get the information from? And it's really hard to find a straight answer, so I'm kind of coming into it from this side angle. It's actually kind of fun. I'm learning a lot about myself by doing these, right? Because I thought I understood the signs before. I'm understanding them at a much better rate. Especially after doing that Gemini video. I really see myself. I thought Gemini was just all about communication. Nah, Gemini is about not being able to stand still mentally. Hence why I'm all over the place. But it seems like chaos to everyone else. There's actually an order to it. There's an order to it. So for any of you Gemini out there, things will go really great when you find how to connect the dots between your seemingly random interests. Yeah. Alright. Well, I'm leaving. I'm not going to lollygag here for too long. Thank you all for being here. I always appreciate you each and every single time. Yes, y'all. Feel free to hit me up with suggestions of the type of thing that you would like to see more of. Otherwise, I'm going to keep doing what I do. Alright. Alright. So this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys and gals, especially gals. Peace.